The following video is for educational purposes only. Do not attempt to replicate any of the stories or betting strategies discussed in this video. If you have or know someone with a gambling addiction, please seek help immediately. This is a story of luck, hope, greed, despair, and stupidity. Over the past 10 days, I have gone on a roller coaster ride of the full spectrum of human emotion. I am trying to live down what happened, and maybe this AMA will help me. I feel this can work both ways too, and I am grateful for any advice I receive. Hopefully, also, it will help you. I say that I hope my story will help you, and I really mean that. Because let me start off by saying that I am not a gambler. I have never even exhibited gambling tendencies before. I am a risk taker and I enjoy new experiences, but I have always considered myself responsible and I have a sound understanding of the math behind gambling. I know that the house always wins, but after what happened to me, how quickly I got sucked in, how much money I made, and how it all ended just days later, I honestly do not feel that I was fully in control of my actions. If it happened to me, it can happen to you too, and I sincerely hope that after reading this, it never will. Let me give some more specific details so that you have a more complete picture. My name is Bob. I am a graduate student in mathematics living in California. I got into Bitcoin as an investment. The last 15 days or so have been extremely tempestuous for Bitcoin, and the events of this AMA coincided with the biggest crash in Bitcoin's history. Around late March 2013, I started learning how to play blackjack just as a fun hobby. I am a multifaceted person with many interests, and this was just another mini hobby that I took up. I was very interested in basic strategy, and was hoping to use it at a casino at our 2-year anniversary with my fiancée. She loves to gamble in a very innocent sense of the word. She and her girlfriends will go to a casino, have some drinks, and have fun losing a bunch of $25 promotional vouchers. I wanted to come with her and impress her by scraping a small profit with basic strategy. I then discovered BitZeno, and I realized that the best way to learn basic strategy is to have a small financial stake to motivate me. I played for small stakes, made some money, then took a couple of bad beats. I lost most of my investment profits and was down to about $4,000. Then I switched to roulette. I quickly recouped my losses and began to lose myself. This was the beginning of the end. On April 1st, 2013, Bitcoin broke $100 for the first time. I played more and more, and the value of my winnings increased more and more. I was suddenly into big money. By April 10th, I had gambled my way up to almost $500,000. I realized how lucky I was to have this amount of money. It was Bitcoin, but it was one click away from being in my bank account. This was real money. That morning, the crash began. I foresaw the crash, but like most speculators, I did not know where the top was going to be. It was at $266. I put in a sell when the price went below $230, which was my stop. But Mt. Gox, the main Bitcoin exchange, was lagged so badly that my order would not go through. Not being able to sell, I got greedy and decided to top up one more time with roulette. I felt justified in this somehow because it was Mt. Gox's fault that I could not cash out my ridiculous profits. I started with a $100 bet, I believe. I bet on red. What followed was a run of about 20 occurrences of black. There must have been 2 reds in between the stream of blacks. After hitting the max bet, I just kept hitting red, and it kept turning black. Once you hit the max bet, the martingale essentially turns into a random walk, so a single red does not save you. Instead, you rely on more red than blacks, with a certain safety margin. I failed both the martingale and the random walk. I lost roughly 1,800 Bitcoin, which is $380,000, depreciating quickly in less than 1 minute. I still had $50,000 left in USD. After the crash died down, I immediately bought in Bitcoin to make up the losses. I kept betting red and hit another run of about 12 to 15 black. I lost the $50,000 the same way. At this point, I was in full tilt mode. Mt. Gox was closed for a 20-hour cooldown following the crash. But even this 24-hour period was not enough for me. A part of me just shut off, and this was when I made the really big mistake. I dipped into my student tuition loans, around $50,000. I turned into an animal, and I lost everything. I figured if I can just double up, then I can at least make up for the previous bullet point, if not the one before that. I kept betting on red as a matter of stubborn principle. Surely not again, I thought. And I swear you could not make this shit up. Another run of 10 plus black. I lost it all. I literally went almost mad at this point. Out of grief, I contacted BitZeno and exchanged some pitiful emails. They were very supportive, emotionally. I am not even sure what I hoped to achieve. I did not sleep for 2 days, drank and took a lot of anti-anxiety meds, which can make you act in weird ways. My fiance knew I was upset, and I owned up that I lost a lot of money. I said it was due to the crash, which did happen on the same day. She could see the charts, so she believed me, but she does not know that I lost every single cent. Lies. But I felt that I did what I had to do. Her dad had a major gambling and alcohol problem, so I really could not break her heart like that. The money that I lost is for tuition. It's just under $50,000, as I already said. The most immediate payment is due end of May, which is around $5,000, the remainder of this academic year. The rest, $40,000, is due over the following academic year. If I can pay off the $5,000, I will at least survive until the summer, and maybe nobody will notice. I have not told anybody what happened, except my flatmate who I have known since high school and am pretty close with. The reality is I will most likely be forced to withdraw from the program, because the payments are due September and Christmas, and my visa status does not permit me to work part-time. I will have to return home to England, and I will lose my fiance, who is also on a student visa. So this is pretty much my story. I realize that there are a lot of people who will say I had it coming, and I fully accept that. The truth is that I am a bad person, and it was not even some conflict of good and bad. It was all just bad. I lose as a human being, and I deserve nothing but the worst of what life has to offer me in the future. And if I sound incongruently cheerful, it's probably because the gravity of the situation has not fully sunk in yet. Trust me, I am not cheerful. I have literally lost everything. I am suicidal, and there is literally no silver lining here. So please reserve your judgment. I will be judged to the fullest extent over however long a time I have left to live.
Okay, so that was another pretty intense and crazy gambling addiction story. Now, I had a lot of issues with this story, so I want to go through them. And just as a disclaimer, this isn't some type of personal attack. I'm not trying to make fun of this guy. But if you are watching this video and you want to learn from this guy's mistakes, we need to be totally honest and transparent with what he's saying. And I want to sort of give you guys my feedback on what I thought. Now, the first red flag from the story was when this guy mentioned that he had no symptoms of being a gambler or having a gambling problem. And right away, he mentioned that he was a risk taker. That is a self-definition or self-description that is completely synonymous with someone that is a gambler. A gambler is a risk taker. That's exactly what it is. And so I went through the rest of his story and I wrote down all these points, which basically shows you that this guy does have all the tendencies of a gambling addict. The first was lying to his fiance about his losses, chasing his losses, blaming bad luck, going on tilt, believing in false probabilities, dipping into his savings, emailing BitZeno for sympathy, and taking anti-anxiety medication. Now, these are all occurrences, descriptive words of someone who is a gambling addict. And that's exactly what this is. Or maybe this is the gateway scenario or origin story of how this guy eventually becomes a gambling addict. Because he's showing all the basic symptoms, tendencies, and even description of someone who has a gambling problem. Now, if you disagree with me and you think that this guy doesn't have a gambling problem, I want to pose this question. What would have happened if Mt. Gox, or however you pronounce that exchange, what if they didn't go through that 20-hour or 24-hour shutdown period? And this guy was able to withdraw all $500,000 of his Bitcoin. And he got the money to his account and now he was rich. Would he have quit playing roulette then? Would he have all of a sudden just stopped gambling or wasn't interested in playing blackjack anymore? Like, this is the problem that I have with this story, is that he sort of blames his misfortune on the fact that the Bitcoin value was crashing and that the Bitcoin exchange had to go through this cool down period and shut down for a short period of time. And if he was able to withdraw his money, like he said, when he put in a sell for around $230, I believe, that he would have got his money. He never would have had this crazy gambling problem and his life would have been amazing. But again, I pose this question. What if he was able to withdraw that money? He probably still would have gambled it somewhere down the lines eventually, because this story is so typical of someone that is developing a gambling addiction early on, and just all the signs are there. Now, another statement that I have an issue with was when he said that he got into Bitcoin as an investment. Now, this is sort of like a weird excuse to justify his actions. If you're someone that knows anything about crypto or has purchased Bitcoin before, you know that this commodity is wildly volatile. The variance that cryptocurrencies go through on a daily basis is absolutely wild and trauma-inducing. Now, I also want to talk about the games and the betting strategies that this guy used with his Bitcoin. At first, I didn't even know that BitZeno was a thing where you had an online casino where you could use Bitcoins to gamble with. That seems even more volatile to me. So this was the first time of me even hearing about this. But obviously, when you are getting into games like blackjack and roulette, these are two of the oldest casino games. These are staples in most casinos all throughout North America. And I always find roulette the most fascinating because there is always this weird obsession with mathematics, probability, and these bizarre strategies that people have, or ones that they use to try to win money. And so the strategy that this guy used for roulette is called the martingale. Now, if you don't know what the martingale is, it is basically when you lose a spin at the roulette table. For the next bet, you double your bet. So say, for example, you put $25 on red and you lose, it comes up black. The next spin, you increase your bet to 50. And then if you lose that, you increase it to 100 and 200 and so on. And so the idea is when you lose that first bet, by doubling your bet on the next losses, eventually you're going to win one of them and then win all of your money back. And so the strategy relies on you betting things where there is roughly 50-50 probability. So like betting on red and black at a roulette table or even an odd, for example. And eventually you will win one of these hands, which will get you back to break even. But what happened to this guy is that he reached the max bet. And this was why he said that if he hit one red, it wasn't going to save him. And what he means is that, say, for example, you are betting 100 and you lose and you bet 2, and then you bet 4, and then 8, 16, 32. Eventually, you'll get to an amount where it is all the money that you have. And let's say, for example, he loses at 3,200. If that is all the money that he has and he loses that bet, on the next spin, he doesn't have $6,400 to try to win all his money back. So by reaching that max bet point, even if he does hit red on the next spin, it's not going to save him. And so this is what he means when he said that he failed the martingale, when he got like 10, 15, or 20 blacks in a row. And again, this guy made a typical beginner mistake where he went and got more money, went back to the roulette table, and he assumed that the table was due for red, and it just can't keep coming black every single time. And this is what's known as a gambler's fallacy. So the gambler's fallacy is when you believe that a random event is less likely or more likely to occur based on a previous event's outcome. So for example, if you spin the roulette table, it comes up black, you spin it again, black, 3 times black, 4 times black. On the 5th spin, you believe, hey, its table is due for red. It can't just keep coming black every single time. But the fallacy is that the roulette table doesn't know what the outcome was of the previous spin. It doesn't matter. On the very next spin, the outcome is still 50-50. It's still, or 49-49, whatever, depending on how many greens are at the table. But it is still 50-50. You could get 100 blacks in a row. On the 101 spin, it's still a 50% chance that it will come black. So in the Reddit post, when this guy explained that the odds of hitting 15 or 18 blacks in a row is 0.0001% or whatever he wrote, this is a definition of a gambler's fallacy. Now, in terms of the rest of the story, there are a couple very important points that I did want to go over and talk about because these are so important to think about or learn from if you are struggling with a gambling addiction. So there are 3 other points from this story that I think are incredibly important for us to go over. The first was this guy's decision to lie to his fiance. The second was chasing his losses. And the third was this part about having suicidal thoughts. Now, the first with lying, this is never something that you want to do, especially with people that you love. If you lose an incredible amount of money or you've gone into debt from gambling, the worst thing you can do is not share this with the people that you love or the people that love you, because they are the ones that care and they are the ones that can try to help you. And by lying to them and by hiding how much money you've truly gambled away or lost, you're just going to hurt them in the end. And the second point that sort of piggybacks off of this is chasing your losses. Now, this is a super typical rookie mistake that gamblers make in the poker world. When I was coming up as a young poker player, learning the game and building my bankroll, one of the biggest mistakes that I made and I saw everyone else make around me was always chasing your losses. Either you would lose way too much money on one certain day, and then all of a sudden you were playing at a buy-in or stakes much higher than you would normally play because you want to win back that money you lost. And there's this very strange human emotion that gets tied to money, where you feel like that $1,000 or $2,000 you lost to the casino is somehow yours. You somehow own that money and that you just want to get it back and you deserve to win it back. And it's very strange because that money's gone. It has no connection to you whatsoever. But us as human beings, we're so attached to the things that we think we own. Like that money was just mine like an hour ago. It was in my wallet. It was in my pocket. It was in my tray of chips. And whenever you lose an exorbitant amount of money, there is this trap where if I can just win one more big bet or hit one big spin on the roulette table, I can just win it all back and get back to even. So chasing your losses is an incredibly poor financial decision and trap that so many of us can fall into. And eventually it can lead to one of the worst feelings that a gambler can have, and that is suicidal thoughts. Whenever you lose a lot of money, gamble away all your savings, or go into massive amounts of debt, there is this level of anxiety and depression and helplessness. And you feel like your life is over. And you get these very bizarre suicidal thoughts and that you're just this loser and there's nothing you can do to make things right. And you feel like your life is over. Now, this is one of the most dangerous and saddest outcomes when it comes to people struggling with a gambling addiction, because far too many times have I read a story about people getting into massive amounts of debt, gambling away their mortgage or gambling away their child's education fund. And then they just feel like there's no way out, and taking their life is the only answer. This is the saddest outcome that any human being could have, as everyone's life is precious. And so if you are struggling with any type of gambling compulsion, addiction, or whatever it is, financial problem, whenever you have any type of negative thoughts, suicidal thoughts, or anything like that come into your mind, you need to get rid of those. You need to find a way to seek help right away, because that ultimately is such a horrible outcome that no one deserves on this earth. And I think that wraps it up. This story was a little bit heavy, but I think there are a ton of points here that we can learn from and go through. And my suspicion is that this guy, I don't know what he's doing now, but hopefully he's recognized that he has a gambling addiction or he has a gambling problem that's brewing at the surface, and he's learned from the mistakes that he made by gambling away all this money through Bitcoin. And it's kind of crazy because he mentioned he had 1,800 Bitcoin. And if you multiply that by the price that Bitcoin's at today, which I think is around $30,000 US, we're talking about $50 million. Not just 500,000 10 years ago, but if he still had those Bitcoins today, he probably is telling this story to a bunch of coworkers and friends that if he kept all those Bitcoins from years ago, he'd have $50+ million in the bank. So hopefully you found this video helpful in some way. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. And if you are someone that is struggling with a gambling addiction and you're seeking one-on-one coaching or help, I offer this service. You can find the link in the description down below. Or if you want to watch another gambling addiction story video, you can watch that right here.